In this video, I want to talk about the fairly new Tamron 24-70 VC, vibration compensation. That's Tamron's equivalent of IS, image stabilization. Nikon calls it VR, vibration reduction. All the same. I'm not really going to spend a lot of time talking about that. I'm going to spend some time talking about this lens. I've been shooting a lot more weddings lately and looking for a lens that will do well in low light, and allow me to get good quality photos. And I thought that this Tamron might be the answer. It certainly is much more affordable than the Canon's version of the 24-70 Mark I and Mark II. They have two versions of that now. The second version is just starting to ship in the US as I'm filming this. Mark I has been discontinued, and as a result the used prices have gone way up. Used new prices as well. So that sells for about $1,500 and has been around for quite some time and is kind of considered a staple in the wedding photography. The 24-70 on a full frame camera is a really nice focal length. It gives you a lot of versatility. You can get your wide shots of the venues, you can zoom into 70 and get some nice portraits, all at a constant f2.8. It's very good. This Tamron sells for about $1,300, somewhere between $1,200 and $1,300, depending on who you're buying from, and additionally has vibration compensation, that image stabilization. The new version that Canon is coming out with, or is out with and is now shipping, is 24-70 as well. Does not have image stabilization and is selling for about $2,300. It's a lot of money to pay for one lens. I was excited about the Tamron because one, maybe I could potentially save a lot of money. Two, it has vibration compensation. I don't do a lot of video other than these videos here, but I have done some, and the idea of being able to do some vibration, have some slight stabilization. If you're really shooting video on a professional level, vibration compensation isn't going to be enough. You're going to need the dolly cams, you're going to need a steady cam, things of that sort. But in my case, it would certainly suffice. And also it's nice in some instances. There's not a lot of wedding photography work where I find that really useful, but it is. I feel like I'm beating around the bush though, because what this really is a reboxing. This is going back. Now I know that people have been getting these, and there are people that are very happy, and it's quite possible that I got one bad copy, and I am the first person to say, please don't listen to those guys who say, I got this lens, it's the worst lens ever, and all of these lenses are bad. There are people out there, people I trust, who have gotten good copies, who are very happy with them. But one, out of the box, this lens was very, very soft at 2.8, which is where I need to spend a lot of time shooting, especially later on in the weddings, the reception. They're almost always poorly lit. The ambiance is wonderful, but it's not great for a photographer, and I need to shoot at 2.8 a lot in there. It's soft. Second thing is multiple times, 4 now I think. I've shot this, I've used it at 2 different weddings. I've gotten lens air communication. What that means is the camera and the lens stop talking to each other. And in both cases, a quick fix was to take it off, put it back on. It was happy again. But that concerns me. And I'm going to say this, but I don't want to scare people away from third parties, because I'm going to talk about third-party lenses that I've had in a moment that I absolutely love, including one is a Tamron 28-75. We'll talk about that in a second. But I don't know if you know this or not. Canon and Nikon don't actually produce the specs for other manufacturers to talk to their lenses. They get reverse engineered by Tamron, by Sigma, and the other manufacturers, and so they're kind of at their whim. Again, does this mean that at some point Canon or Nikon are going to shut them off from being able to work with the cameras? I think the chance of that is so small it's not even worth talking about. But that's how they get these lenses to work with these cameras. They reverse engineer. And in my case, it didn't work out so well. Clearly, I've gotten a copy that is not as good as some other people's copies because they've been very happy with it. So there's that. And then the third thing, this hasn't happened to me, but Roger at Lens Rental, he is the awesome, awesome antidote to the people who say, this lens is terrible, like I am now. Because he's got data that backs up that this lens is quite sharp. But what they found in some copies that have been banged around a little bit, that internally, the front element comes unglued and just falls forward. So it would be a pretty big bummer to show up at a wedding using this lens, pull it out of the bag, and find out that it's been banged enough that the front element has come off and it's completely unusable until you send it in for repair. Which brings me to another point, which I think wasn't going to quite get into, but I've heard Tamron is not the best as far as customer service and dealing with. I'm not going to deal with them. I'm simply going to return them. This is one of the reasons why I love shopping on Amazon. 30 days return, no questions asked. I've never had an issue. I have to pay $6 to ship it back, but $6, I've used it for 2 weeks. It was enough time for me to decide this lens isn't for me, and I'm sending it back, just like that. So I'm really happy to be able to do that. I really wish that this lens was going to work out for me and save, because I personally now feel my only option really, this is silly, it's not my only option, but it's what I want to do, and that is go ahead and get the Mark II. So I'm going to pay that extra $1,000, and we're talking about $2,300 to get the 24-70 Canon Mark II. The reports are just fantastic. I haven't even seen a bit of hesitation on anybody's part about how incredibly sharp that lens is, sharper than mini primes, L glass primes, which is just really nice to have that versatility and that sharpness both in a lens. So I'll be certain to be talking about that lens when it comes in. It doesn't have vibration control or IS. It's a little bit of a bummer, but I'm certainly not going to get hung up on it because, as I said, in my real work, I don't use it. I was just looking forward to using it for some of these videos that I do for you all, and just some other fun videos and things of that sort. So, Tamron 24-70s going back to Amazon. But I did want to mention about third-party lenses that I love. This is the 28-75 f2.8 from Tamron, and this lens now is close to 5 years old, and it has been used a ton, and it's incredibly sharp. I've put it up against the 24-70 Mark I from Canon, and at some focal lengths it beats it. At other focal lengths the Canon does, but this is a $500 lens. That's it, just $500. This is, I think, is one of the best value lenses out there. You get the constant f2.8 aperture, you get some sharpness that rivals L glass on the Canon side. It's even, you get, I wouldn't call it a macro lens, they put macro on the side there, but you can get nice and close with it. Just a really good value. So that's a great third-party lens, and also made by the same company, Tamron, that I'm complaining about this other. This is the Sigma 18-50 2.8. Way back when I bought my Rebel XT, I had heard reports about the kit lens being terrible, stay away from kit lenses, blah, blah, blah. And so I was quite scared, and I wanted something with a constant aperture, and I went with this. This lens was used as my only lens for about 3 years straight. There was even a period of time when I first got my Rebel XT where I was scared to switch lenses because I was going to get dust on the sensor. We'll talk about that in another video. Please don't be scared to switch lenses like me. Very sharp, constant aperture, has some chromatic aberration problems, but really only when you're shooting wide open against the bright sky. I don't know actually, honestly, if they even sell this lens new anymore. They have other versions. What I think you run into, though, in general with third-party lenses is not quite the same quality control. That's not to say that Nikon and Canon don't have quality control problems. They both companies recently have released cameras that have had some issues. The T4i being one, the 5D Mark III. On the Nikon side, the D800 has autofocus issues that they're just now admitting to and fixing. But I think you have less of them. You have a higher quality control with the big names. And when you get into Tamron, clearly I've gotten a bad copy. My 24-70 Mark II from Canon could arrive, and I could find that it also is a bad copy. But the reports that I'm hearing, no one has gotten a bad copy yet. I have heard of some other people being very unhappy with their Tamron results. Maybe their expectations were just too high. I don't think my expectations were too high when I put it up against this lens right here, less than half the price. and 5 years old, beat the 24-70 Tamron at all focal lengths, even after I micro adjusted this, which is something you can do on the higher end bodies. You can say, this lens is off a little bit. When I tell you to focus, actually focus back a little bit and things like that sort. So I think that's all I want to say in this video. Please, if you have any questions about this lens 28-75 or the Sigma 28. In general, I don't feel as bad about kit lenses as I did back then. We're now on the Mark II version of the Canon kit lens. It's a fine lens to start with. It's not an exciting lens. It's not going to wow anybody, but it gets the job done, and it lets you as a beginning photographer kind of figure out what you want to shoot more of. And maybe you shoot more in low light, then your next lens you can start to look for ones that will fill that function. Or maybe you want more of a zoom. And then of course there is the Canon 18-135 now, which is quite fantastic. It really is good. It's not a fixed aperture, but I was really pleased with the sharpness over the focal length, the control on chromatic aberration. So that's a really nice lens, and I think paired with the T4i, it's a good value. I've talked about that in lots of other videos, so I'm not going to say anything more about that. But please, any questions about these lenses or any other lenses, I'm here. I work really hard to make sure that your questions are answered. And you know, every once in a while I get somebody who'll start a question off with, "This is a dumb question." Don't worry about that. Honestly, we all started someplace near zero, and we all wondered these things at one point or another. And I'm here to help you go from zero to some higher number. If you haven't already subscribed, please do that. I have lots more videos coming, thoughts on different lenses, more tutorials on the T4i, some more higher end tutorials as well that talk about some of the other Canon cameras that are out there, and things of that sort. So, thank you for watching.